The streets of Chicago's South Side lay quiet under the glow of streetlights. It was 2:17 a.m. on a humid July morning when Staff Sergeant Philip Benjamin's taxi pulled up to his red brick home. After 15 months in Afghanistan, all he wanted was to surprise his wife Lucy and hold her in his arms again. He wasn't supposed to be home for another 3 weeks. The early return was his gift to her. But sometimes, coming home early can reveal the darkest of secrets. Welcome back to True Crime Watch HD, where we uncover stories that remind us that the greatest dangers often lurk closest to home. Before we dive deeper into this haunting tale of betrayal, deception, and deadly consequences, take a moment to join our true crime community by hitting that subscribe button and notification bell. As Philip stood on his driveway that night, something felt off. There was an unfamiliar car parked in front, a black Chrysler 300 with tinted windows and custom rims. The porch light, which Lucy always kept on at night, was dark. The front garden, once meticulously maintained by his wife, now looked overgrown. Empty beer bottles lined the porch railing. Let me ask you this. Have you ever had that gut feeling that something was terribly wrong? That moment when small details start adding up to a terrible truth? Share your experiences in the comments below. Using his key, Philip quietly opened the front door. The living room smelled different, unfamiliar cologne mixed with marijuana smoke. Their wedding photo, which had always sat proudly on the entry table, lay face down. Then he heard it, muffled sounds coming from upstairs. What Philip would discover in the next few minutes would shatter his world and set in motion a chain of events that would reveal a plot more sinister than anyone could have imagined. This wasn't just a story of infidelity. It was a calculated conspiracy that would end in bloodshed. In the military, Philip had learned that hesitation could mean death. But nothing in his combat training could have prepared him for what awaited him upstairs in his own home. The sounds grew clearer as he silently climbed the stairs, rhythmic creaking, heavy breathing, a man's low grunt. The master bedroom door was closed, but not fully latched. Yellow light spilled through the crack, along with sounds that confirmed his worst fears. What happened next would change multiple lives forever and expose a deadly plot that had been months in the making. If you're invested in this story already, make sure you're subscribed to True Crime Watch HD. We bring you meticulously researched true crime stories that delve deep into the human psyche, revealing the dark capabilities that lie within ordinary people. Let's roll back the clock 6 months before that fateful night. Lucy Benjamin stood in front of her bathroom mirror, carefully applying her MAC Ruby Woo lipstick. At 32, she still turned heads. Her gym routine kept her figure tight, and she took pride in her appearance. What no one knew was that she was living a double life, one that would eventually lead to murder. Her marriage to Philip had started like a fairy tale. High school sweethearts who married right after graduation. He'd joined the army to provide a better life for them, and she'd supported his decision. But somewhere along the way, something had changed. The deployments got longer, the distance grew wider, and Lucy started feeling lonely. That's when Job Williams walked into her life at the hair salon where she worked. He was everything Philip wasn't: present, spontaneous, dangerous in an exciting way. But Job wasn't just Lucy's lover. He would become her co-conspirator in a plot that would shock the entire South Side community. What Lucy and Job were planning went far beyond a simple affair. They were playing a dangerous game, one that involved military deployment schedules, life insurance policies, and discussions about making sure things looked natural in a combat zone. Ask yourself, how well do we really know the people we love? Could someone be plotting against you while saying, "I love you" every night? As we continue this story, we'll reveal the intricate web of deception that Lucy and Job wove, the fatal miscalculation they made, and how an early homecoming exposed a murder plot that would have otherwise remained hidden in the shadows of Chicago's South Side. Stay with us. This story is just beginning to unfold. The secret meetings between Lucy and Job had started innocently enough, or at least, that's what Lucy told herself. But surveillance footage later recovered from Jobs' car wash business would tell a different story. Late-night conversations in his office, discussing deployment schedules, insurance policies, and ways to make a soldier's death look natural in a war zone. "It has to look natural," Jobs' voice echoed on one recording. "Combat zone. Anything could happen." Lucy's response would later send chills through the courtroom. "Whatever it takes. I can't spend another year pretending to be the proud military wife." While Philip was dodging bullets in Afghanistan, his wife wasn't just being unfaithful, she was pricing out his murder. Bank records would later reveal large cash deposits to Lucy's personal account. Jobs' phone contained deleted messages about taking care of the soldier problem. They weren't just planning an affair, they were planning an execution. Detective Williams, a veteran of Chicago PD's Homicide Division, would later piece together the elaborate scheme. "This wasn't just about passion," he would tell reporters. "This was about greed, pure and simple." They had multiple plans in place. Plan A was to arrange an accident during deployment. Plan B involved hired contractors in Afghanistan. They even researched ways to make it look like Taliban activity. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of the plot was how Lucy maintained her facade. She would FaceTime with Philip, telling him how much she missed him, all while sitting in the same bed where she plotted his death with her lover. If you're finding this story as shocking as we did, make sure to subscribe to True Crime Watch HD. We dig deep into cases like this, exposing the dark underbelly of seemingly perfect relationships. The complexity of the plot was staggering. Jobs' cousin worked at an insurance company and had helped fast-track Philip's policy changes. A former cellmate of Jobs was arrested for attempting to purchase untraceable weapons. They had offshore accounts ready, fake documents prepared, and even a timeline set for Philip's next deployment. At Sharp Cut Salon, where Lucy worked, her colleague Shanice noticed changes. "Lucy changed when she met Job," she would later testify. "Started wearing expensive stuff, talking about needing more excitement. One time I heard them arguing about timing. She wanted to wait. He was pushing for something to happen sooner." Think about this. How many times had Lucy styled her client's hair, making small talk about their lives, all while harboring such dark secrets? How many times had she laughed and joked with her co-workers while plotting her husband's death? The irony of it all? The security cameras that caught Lucy and Jobs' late-night meetings were installed by Philip himself, meant to protect his wife while he was deployed. Instead, they would become crucial evidence in unraveling their murderous conspiracy. But none of this evidence would have come to light if Philip hadn't come home early that night. The plot was meticulous. The pieces were in place. All they needed was for Philip to return to Afghanistan one last time. Instead, there he was, climbing those stairs, his combat boots silent on the steps he had built himself. The same stairs where Lucy and Job had kissed countless times, where they had whispered their deadly plans, where they had laughed about how easy it would be to fool everyone once Philip was gone. As he reached the top of those stairs, the sounds from the bedroom became unmistakable. But Philip didn't know that the gun he would find wasn't just for protection against a jealous husband. It was part of a larger plan, one that would have eventually been turned against him in a foreign land. The scene that was about to unfold would shake Chicago's South Side to its core. A decorated combat veteran, a cheating wife, and her lover caught in a deadly triangle. But this was more than a crime of passion. It was the explosive conclusion to a calculated murder plot. For Lucy and Job, this was supposed to be just another night of secret meetings and whispered plans. They had no way of knowing that their time had run out. The same military schedule they had studied so carefully to plan Philip's death had become their undoing. Let me ask you something that might hit close to home. Have you ever wondered if someone close to you is wearing a mask? Share your thoughts in the comments below. But remember, sometimes the truth is darker than we can imagine. The evidence that would later emerge painted a picture of breathtaking callousness. Lucy had used Philip's combat pay to buy gifts for Job, including those custom rims on his Chrysler, the same car Philip saw parked outside his house that night. She had taken out additional credit cards in Philip's name while he was deployed, preparing for a future she planned to spend with his insurance money. Their arrogance was their downfall. They had grown so confident in their plan that they became careless. Job started keeping videos as insurance against Lucy possibly turning on him. In one particularly damning recording, Lucy could be heard laughing about Philip sending her extra money for their anniversary, saying he was basically funding their dates. The betrayal went beyond the physical. Every care package Philip sent from Afghanistan, every loving message, every promise of a future together, all met with cold calculation from the woman who had vowed to love him forever. While he was fighting for his country, she was fighting to end his life. As we prepare to reveal what happened in that bedroom that night, remember to subscribe to True Crime Watch HD for more in-depth investigations into cases that remind us that the greatest dangers often wear the mask of love. The next few minutes would change everything. But what happened in that bedroom wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the beginning of an investigation that would uncover one of the most shocking conspiracies in Chicago's recent history. The moment Philip Benjamin pushed open that bedroom door, 3 lives changed forever. The scene burned itself into his mind in fragments. Tangled sheets, brown skin against brown skin, his wife's legs wrapped around a stranger's waist, their wedding picture on the nightstand watching it all. Time seemed to stop. Then Lucy screamed. The man, Job Williams, rolled off and reached for something on the floor. In the yellow lamplight, metal glinted. A gun. But what Philip couldn't know in that moment was that this wasn't just any weapon. It was the same gun Job had planned to use to stage Philip's accident during his next deployment. Philip's military training took over. In Afghanistan, hesitation meant death. He crossed the room in 2 steps, caught Job's wrist before he could raise the weapon, and drove his other fist into the man's throat. The gun clattered to the floor. What happened next would later be described in clinical detail in police reports, but the reality was chaos. Lucy screaming. Job gasping for air but coming up swinging. Fists connecting with flesh. Bodies rolling on the floor. Blood spraying across white walls. The gun sliding under the bed. In the chaos, Philip's hand found the gun. Job lunged. 2 shots rang out, then silence. If you're as invested in this story as we are, make sure to hit that subscribe button. True Crime Watch HD brings you the most compelling true crime stories, meticulously researched and professionally presented. When Chicago PD arrived at the scene, they found a tableau that initially seemed straightforward, a soldier catching his wife with another man, a tragic but familiar story. But Detective Williams, a veteran investigator with 20 years on the force, sensed something deeper. The gun was legally registered to the deceased, Williams would later testify. But why would a man bring a registered weapon to an affair? Why risk the extra charges if caught? Unless the gun was meant for something else. Here's something to consider. How often do we miss the signs of betrayal because we're not looking for them? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The investigation that followed would uncover layer after layer of deception. Detective Williams sat at his desk in Area Central, surrounded by photos from the crime scene, when Officer Thompson brought him the breakthrough, Lucy's phone records. Hundreds of texts between her and Job going back 8 months. But more importantly, messages to a burner phone discussing life insurance policies and deployment schedules. A failed break-in attempt at the Benjamin house 4 months earlier, right after Philip had increased his SGLI to $1 million. At Chicago Med, where Lucy was recovering from a shoulder wound, caught by a bullet that had passed through Job, she maintained her innocence. But the evidence told a different story. Bank records showed wire transfers to offshore accounts. A laptop found in Job's car contained research on untraceable poisons and accidents that could look natural in a war zone. The true scope of the conspiracy began to emerge. Job's car wash empire wasn't just a business. It was a front for planning Philip's murder. The late-night meetings weren't just about passion. They were about plotting death for profit. Lucy's facade finally cracked under questioning. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she sobbed to Detective Williams. "Job said it would be clean. Quick. Philip wouldn't suffer." But her crocodile tears didn't match the cold calculation revealed in her texts and emails. One particularly damning email read, "Next deployment is in September. That's our window. After that, we'll be set for life." She had already spent some of Philip's combat pay on gifts for Job, including those custom rims on his Chrysler, the same car that had raised Philip's suspicions that fatal night. The community reaction was explosive. At Sharp Cut Salon, Shanice couldn't contain her disgust. She sat right there, she told reporters, pointing to Lucy's empty styling station, talking about how much she missed Philip, how proud she was of him serving. Meanwhile, she plotting with her side dude to kill him? That's cold. The investigation revealed more players in this deadly game. Job's cousin at the insurance company. A former cellmate approached about becoming a hitman. A network of conspirators all motivated by the promise of blood money. But perhaps the most chilling evidence came from Job's own phone. He'd recorded conversations with Lucy, apparently as insurance against betrayal. In one video, filmed in their bedroom just 2 months earlier, they casually discussed murder methods as if planning a vacation. Stay tuned as we reveal the shocking conclusion to this tale of betrayal, greed, and justice. The evidence that would seal Lucy's fate was even more damning than anyone could have imagined. The Cook County Criminal Courthouse buzzed with tension as Lucy Benjamin's preliminary hearing began. Gone were the designer clothes and carefully applied makeup. Instead, she appeared in a wheelchair, her left arm in a sling, wearing county-issued beige scrubs. The woman who had plotted her husband's death now faced the full weight of justice. Assistant State's Attorney Karen Martinez stood before the packed courtroom, her opening statement cutting through the tension like a knife. Your Honor, the evidence will show that the defendant, along with her deceased co-conspirator, engaged in a calculated plot to murder her husband for financial gain. This wasn't a simple affair gone wrong. This was a premeditated conspiracy to kill a United States soldier. The prosecution's case was devastating. One by one, the pieces of Lucy and Job's murderous puzzle were laid bare before the court. Digital forensics had recovered deleted emails discussing various murder scenarios. Financial records showed a web of suspicious transactions. But it was the video evidence that would prove most damning. The surveillance footage from Philip's home security system, cameras he had installed to protect Lucy while he was deployed, now served to expose her betrayal. The timestamps told their own story. Late-night meetings, intimate encounters, and most importantly, conversations about murder. Think about this. How many of our protective measures could be recording our own undoing? Share your experiences with Trust and Technology in the comments below. For those just joining True Crime Watch HD, hit that subscribe button. We bring you the most detailed and compelling true crime stories, peeling back the layers of human nature to expose the darkness that sometimes lurks in plain sight. The testimony of Shanice, Lucy's former co-worker from Sharp Cut Salon, proved particularly powerful. She took the stand, her voice steady as she recounted the changes she'd observed in Lucy after meeting Job. She started coming to work with designer bags, expensive jewelry, Shanice testified. One day, she was laughing about Philip sending extra money for their anniversary. She said, and I quote, "He's basically funding our dates." I felt sick to my stomach, but I never imagined she was planning to kill him. The financial evidence painted a picture of staggering greed. Investigators had uncovered multiple offshore accounts set up in anticipation of the insurance payout. Credit cards opened in Philip's name while he was deployed. Wire transfers to known criminal contacts. Research into untraceable poison purchases. Documents relating to hitmen in Afghanistan. But perhaps the most chilling evidence came from Job's phone. He had recorded their conversations as insurance against Lucy potentially turning on him. In one video, filmed in their bedroom just 2 months before the shooting, they discussed methods with casual detachment. It has to look natural. Combat zone. Anything could happen. Lucy said. My connection says he can make it look like friendly fire. Costs extra, but untraceable. Job replied. Whatever it takes. I can't spend another year pretending to be the proud military wife. Lucy replied. The courtroom fell silent as these recordings played. Even Lucy's parents, who had initially stood by their daughter, left the courtroom in tears. They would later make a public statement supporting their son-in-law, admitting they had failed to see what their daughter had become. Detective Williams took the stand next, methodically laying out the conspiracy they had uncovered. This wasn't a crime of passion or a love triangle gone wrong, he testified. This was a calculated murder plot with multiple backup plans. If Sergeant Benjamin hadn't come home early that night, he likely would have never come home at all. The evidence continued to mount. Detailed deployment schedules with potential accident opportunities marked. Research into Taliban attack patterns and military convoy routes. Communications with corrupt contractors in Afghanistan. Life insurance policy modifications. Practice runs of various accident scenarios. Consider this. How many soldiers' deaths in combat zones might not have been combat-related at all? The thought sent shockwaves through the military community. Meanwhile, Philip sat stoically through the proceedings, flanked by his brother Michael and their mother, Gloria Benjamin, a retired postal worker who attended every day of court. The only time his composure cracked was during the playback of his own security footage, watching his wife and her lover casually discuss his murder on his own back porch. The defense tried to paint Lucy as a victim of jobs manipulation, but the evidence told a different story. In email after email, text after text, it was Lucy pushing for action, Lucy researching methods, Lucy coordinating with contacts. Job might have been willing, but Lucy was the driving force. One email from Lucy to Job read, "We need to stop talking and make this happen. I'm tired of playing wife every time he FaceTimes. Tired of listening to him talk about our future when I want a future with you. September's deployment is our chance." The trial was reaching its climax, but there was still more shocking evidence to come. The prosecution had saved their most devastating revelation for last. Evidence that would remove any doubt about Lucy's role in the conspiracy and seal her fate. Don't miss the conclusion of this shocking true crime story, where justice finally catches up with a plot that nearly claimed the life of an American hero. Make sure you're subscribed to True Crime Watch HD for the most compelling true crime content. The prosecution's final piece of evidence landed like a bombshell in the hushed courtroom. A series of videos recovered from Job's cloud storage showed Lucy Benjamin doing something unthinkable, conducting practice runs of her husband's murder. In one particularly disturbing clip, Lucy could be seen measuring doses of untraceable poison, carefully noting the effects it might have. "Has to look like natural causes," her voice echoed through the courtroom speakers. "The insurance company will investigate if it looks suspicious." The jury watched in stunned silence as video after video revealed the depths of Lucy's planning. Testing different routes to bypass military checkpoints in Afghanistan. Rehearsing her grieving widow performance. Calculating exactly how long to wait before claiming the insurance money. Planning how to explain sudden wealth to friends and family. Before we reveal the verdict that would shake Chicago's South Side community, if you're finding this story as compelling as our other viewers have, make sure to subscribe to True Crime Watch HD. We bring you the most meticulously researched true crime stories that expose the darkness lurking beneath seemingly normal relationships. The jury's deliberation was surprisingly brief, just 4 hours. When they filed back into the courtroom, Lucy Benjamin stood shakily, her face pale. The foreman's voice rang clear. "On all counts, we find the defendant guilty." Judge Miranda Chen's sentencing statement would later be quoted in law schools across the country. "Mrs. Benjamin, you betrayed not just your marriage vows, but basic human decency. You plotted to murder a man who served his country honorably, who trusted and provided for you. While he fought for our freedom, you planned his death." The sentence: 25 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections. Lucy's sobs echoed through the courtroom as she was led away, but few felt sympathy. Her own parents left without speaking to anyone, their daughter's true nature finally revealed in full. Let me ask you this final question. How many other soldiers might be facing similar dangers from those they trust most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The aftermath of the case rippled through Chicago's South Side community. Sharp Cut Salon closed temporarily, then reopened under new management. Shanice, whose testimony had helped seal Lucy's fate, started her own shop, pointedly naming it Loyalty First. Job's car wash empire was sold off to pay legal settlements. His children from a previous relationship received most of the proceeds, a small consolation for their father's role in a murderous conspiracy. Philip Benjamin resigned from the army, accepting a medical discharge with full benefits. The psychological toll of betrayal proved harder to heal than any combat wound. He started counseling at the VA and eventually began speaking to veterans groups about trauma and betrayal. The house where it all happened sold quickly, below market value. The new owners gutted the master bedroom, replacing the blood-stained floors. But the memories remained, a testament to how quickly the American dream could turn into a nightmare. 1 year later, Philip sat in his new apartment, looking at divorce papers. His hand hesitated over the signature line as memories flooded back, Their high school prom, their wedding day, all the homecomings and farewells. His phone buzzed, a text from his VA counselor. Group meets at 7. You coming? He signed the papers. The case led to significant changes in military life insurance policies. New safeguards were put in place to prevent similar conspiracies. The military community rallied around Philip, creating support networks for service members dealing with marital issues during deployment. Detective Williams, who had unraveled the conspiracy, later reflected, "This case changed how we look at military spouse deaths. Sometimes the enemy isn't on the battlefield. Sometimes they're sleeping right beside you." The ripple effects continued. Lucy's story became a cautionary tale in military marriage counseling. Jobs' criminal network was exposed, leading to dozens of arrests. The insurance company overhauled its policies regarding military death benefits. The evidence from the case, the videos, the emails, the recorded conversations, became training material for law enforcement agencies across the country. How to spot the signs of a conspiracy. How to recognize when an affair might be covering something more sinister. Today, Philip continues his work with veteran support groups, turning his tragedy into a mission to help others. Lucy serves her sentence at Logan Correctional Center, her requests for appeal denied multiple times. The insurance money she killed for remains unclaimed in a government account. Outside, Chicago continues its endless cycle of renewal. New buildings rise, old ones fall. People love, betray, heal, move on. But in certain quiet moments, in the spaces between heartbeats, the echoes remain of gunshots on a summer night, of trust shattered like glass, of a soldier who came home too early, and a wife who plotted too late. This case reminds us that sometimes the greatest acts of heroism aren't performed on the battlefield, but in the quiet moments when we choose to go on living despite betrayal. When we choose justice over vengeance. When we choose to warn others so they might avoid the same fate. Thank you for joining us for this episode of True Crime Watch HD. If you found this story as compelling as we did, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue bringing these important stories to light. Remember, the darkness in human nature often hides behind the brightest smiles. Stay vigilant, stay safe, and we'll see you in our next investigation.